Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Laura Luciano, and this is Slow Food East End Live, our first ever virtual gathering that will be one of 4 webinars kicking off our September membership drive. Slow Food Live is our way of bringing slow food into your home during this pandemic, and also figuring out how to partner with our local food community of producers, makers, farmers, fishers, harvesters, chefs, and organizations whose sole purpose is to feed those that do not have access to healthy food. If you're not familiar with slow food, and I know many of you are that are on this webinar, we are a not-for-profit international grassroots movement that was founded by Carlo Petrini 30 years ago in Italy. We are in 160 countries with 150 chapters across the USA with a common mission of good, clean, and fair food for all. Everything we do around the world takes a little bit of a different shape depending on the culture, place, and the context of the state of the world. But the mission is always the same. And here on the East End of Long Island, we have one of the largest chapters across the country. And what makes our chapter so successful is the partnerships, volunteers, and members, like some of you on this webinar today. And hopefully, by the end of this month, some of you who are not members will join, and those who are members will, are members and their membership might be expiring, will renew this month for a chance to win a $150 gift certificate from our Snail of Approval restaurants and farm stands. But without further ado, I'm delighted to bring to you today Slow Fermented Drinks with a Twist by the great Leslie Merinoff, the founder of Matchbook Distillery. We were fortunate enough to film Leslie in action at her distillery, making 2 great slow drinks. One is a fermented soda, and the other is Sole Mio, a drink made with Treber Farms butternut squash. And we are really happy to share it with you now. Leslie wanted to be with us today, but she is with her team in the Finger Lakes at a farm researching and resourcing products for their delicious concoctions. So out of the kindness of her heart and the love for our East End community and for slow food, she has created these videos for us.
Hi, my name is Leslie Merinoff. I'm the founder of Matchbook Distilling Company in Greenport. Today we are here at the distillery at our test kitchen cocktail bar, and I'm going to teach you how to make some soda. So during quarantine, people have gotten really into cooking and really into projects and really into health. And these fermented sodas are a great way to add a little flavor and a little excitement into your day, and a cool thing to do with some waste that you might be creating in your kitchen. I'm gonna make it with some pulp from juicing, but there are definitely some other things that you can make it with, such as if you're eating pineapple, you can make it with pineapple skins and it will be called tapache, or really any type of fruit skins. But it's the whole same process. It's the same concept, so just follow me. So we've got the juice pulp. We have a container. We're gonna take the juice pulp and put it into said container. And we'll take some water from my magical faucet. And we'll fill it up. Okay, so now what's gonna happen in here is this water is just going to infuse. And we'll throw it in the fridge and we'll let it infuse for about a day, and it'll pick up some flavor and some color. And then pretend it's just been in a fridge and we're time-lapsing a day, and now we're taking it out. And we're gonna take our strainer, which I have over here, and we're going to hopefully, oh, look at the color it picked up over all that time. I'll just sort of press it out. There's a really cool tradition of making something like this in France way back in the day. It was called piquette, and for vineyard workers, the wineries would actually pay their workers with grape pumice. So that is after like pressing off the red wine, you have all of the grapes there, and there's a little bit of alcohol in it maybe, and people would take it home and they would re-soak them, and then they do what we're doing here, just press all the water out, and then they would take a little bit of honey if they had it, or some form of sugar or juice, and add in the honey. I would say if you're gonna do about a bottle's worth, maybe use like a teaspoon or a tablespoon of honey. It's going to ferment and make it really bubbly. So I would say if you're one of those people who like starts projects and you have to do something every single day, but you don't, I would say go less sugar, maybe like half a teaspoon. Like if you've killed your sourdough starter more than once since quarantine started, I'd say you're at half a teaspoon of honey. If your starter, if you're making like the most bomb sourdough on Long Island, I'd say go full tablespoon. So you're going to add this mixture to your bottle, and go for one of these like swing top bottles if you can. And then, of course, I'm a little shy. You won't be, but for all intents and purposes, I'm just gonna fill it up to the top. I guess if you are shy, you can also just add it with water, but the flavor and the color is gonna be diluted. Okay, so pretend you have a whole bottle. You want it to be filled until there's about 3 fingers from the top, a real professional standard of measurement. And then you're going to cap it up, give it a little shake. And then what's gonna happen is it's gonna start to ferment. And maybe it won't start fermenting from the first day, but it will definitely kick off at some point. So every day you're gonna do what is very elegantly referred to as burping. You're just gonna open it to let the CO2 gas out daily and then close it back up. Okay. A small amount of alcohol will be created in this process, depending on how much honey that you added. If you would like no alcohol at all, you're gonna need some sort of starter. So if you have some whey lying around, like if you're making cheese, you can throw some whey in if it's unpasteurized, or you can get some Kefir Starter grains. So this is going to give it a nice lactic acid bacteria, acetic acid bacteria, all of those other gut healthy, happy, friendly things. Or if you have a probiotic capsule, you can just open up the capsule and put that powder in here. Personally, I feel like just honey on its own is really gonna do the trick. And the vegetables that you're adding and the fruit you're adding, they have their own natural yeast already on it. So you're gonna be good to go. And in the end, you're gonna wind up with something that's like bubbly and juicy and delicious. Okay, so a little troubleshooting. If you forget to like burp your bottle, you're just going to watch your face when you're opening them. And if you have it in a champagne bottle, or if you have it in one of these, you'll just like start to pull the gasket out until you hear the gas escaping. With one of these bottles, you're just gonna watch your face and just use something to like slowly let the gas escape out. And then that can like chill for a while escaping. Another common question is, if my bottle doesn't start fermenting, should I add more sugar? So you should not add more sugar. You should just like trust in the process. Make sure your bottle isn't any place that's too cold. Fermentation likes the same kind of environment you do. So like a balmy 75, 80 degrees is fine. Generally up until 90 is cool. Try not to go anywhere lower than 70. If I mentioned the Kefir Starter, so how that whole fermentation works is in the wild ferment, you're just gonna have all these ambient yeasts, all these like ambient Saccharomyces floating around. And so sugar just naturally ferments into alcohol. You don't like need to guide it there. I see a lot of people on the internet making like ginger beer, which is great. Ginger beer is delicious. And they think that they're getting enough grains and enough competition, I should say not grains, enough competition from the Saccharomyces that's on the like skin of the ginger. That's probably not correct. Like those recipes are probably getting you about 5% alcohol. That's why your kids are crazy. So I strongly recommend using a starter of some sort. Again, whey is really cool, but these kefir grains, they've got all these different strains of lactobacillus in it that will outcompete the Saccharomyces. So you'll be getting more lactic acid and CO2 than you will alcohol and CO2. Let's check on our bottle here. Still off gassing. What are some other things? Around ingredients, you can get like a little bit of a natural intuition for what you're gonna like drinking, right? Maybe making a celery juice is going to give you a soda that's like nice and earthy. Maybe you'll throw a little bit of sea salt in it, and that will be nice and complete for you. But at the same time, like a kale juice might not have the same effect when you turn it into a soda. But aside from that, like pretty much anything works and will be lovely and delicious. Other challenges. Look, people have been making this stuff for so long, you just have to decide to make it. You've probably already made it before. Like when you leave a carton of orange juice out on your counter for too long and it starts bubbling, the rule of thumb is if it smells good, then it is safe to consume. If there are strange colors on it, you're not an expert. You don't need to be a chemist. Just throw that out and try again. I think those are all my problems. But you're welcome to reach out to me on Instagram at Matchbook Distilling if you have any follow-ups. Cool. Thanks so much.
But it's good. I loved it. It's fun.
Great. Anyone else?
I'm thinking though, even it's a mocktail, a little alcohol added into it would be quite delicious as well.
We've used this technique to make ginger beer because you can make it with much less sugar than it's commercially available.
Oh,
That would be good.
yeah.
And then, of course, in keeping with your suggestion, Penny, you can then turn that into a darkened storm.
I'm coming over.
Or Moscow Mule.
Moscow Mule is more my speed, so I'm on my way.
I thought it might be interesting to talk a little bit about what's really going on in the fermentation, because there are two different things that will ferment different aspects of this fruit slurry that you've got. Yeast is a pretty large organism and it ferments sugar. And the reason it doesn't really make the alcohol right away is that it has to really get going in the fermentation. And once it uses up its oxygen, then it switches the way it ferments and it starts to produce alcohol. You have to let the CO2 out or else it's going to blow up. The other thing she was talking about was the Lactobacillus. That's a bacteria that's much, much smaller and it's much fussier, but that converts acid. It doesn't convert sugar. So the yeast are going to convert the sugar into alcohol. The Lactobacillus is going to convert the acid. So a lot of these fruits have malic acid. Let's say that's an acid of apples, and grapes have a lot of malic acid. When you talk about malolactic fermentation, what you're going to get with the Lactobacillus is the conversion of acid to aldehyde, or something that smells like diacetyl, smells like butter. So when you get that butteriness, it makes it less sharp tasting. So that part of the fermentation is going to make it maybe buttery and smoother and less, sharp. And then what happens with the alcohol is if it gets oxygen, you can start getting vinegar bacteria in there. You don't want that because that's going to give you vinegar, unless what you want is vinegar. Like a lot of times these fermented beverages have a little bit of a vinegary finish. You might like that, you might not, but that's what you're watching for, and how long you're going to ferment it is, just a matter of experience and taste, and that's how much sugar you have in there is going to be how much alcohol you get. You get about half as much alcohol as sugar that you start with if it's a regular yield. So that's the technical side of it, but who cares, right?
Well, you are the professional.
I don't know, it's worth talking about, what is actually going on, in my opinion, but that's okay because really it's all for fun.
I appreciate that. I'm so glad that you're here to talk about that because there is a lot of nuances, right? I mean, a lot of nuances. which is what Leslie was talking about. And I think the gist of what Leslie was talking about was just to jump in and to have fun with it. I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen? That maybe you make vinegar.
Yeah, I mean, when I was in boarding school, I had this jug of apple cider, and I had it out on my my fire escape, and you know, it bubbled away. And I wasn't really trying to make alcohol, but that's what I ended up with. Then it turned to vinegar, and it had horrible gunk growing on the surface, and then I had to throw it out.
Then you had to throw it out.
Yeah.
Timing is everything.
Absolutely.
So if no one has any questions or any other insights, there is another video that I would like to share, and it's a cocktail that Leslie is making that's called Sole Mio, which is my son. And I think you all might find that to be really very interesting. Are we ready? So if we can all, I'm going to mute you all.
So a little bit about Matchbook. We love fermentation here, obviously, and we love working with local agriculture. We're really driven by biodiversity, and that has been something that has been a bit inconsistent with the way that distilleries have been functioning for like the last 100 years. Before 100 years ago, there's like a super long and awesome history about fermenting and distilling ingredients or agriculture that is left over from harvest. Obviously, agriculture is terminal, and so anything that doesn't get used right away, more or less, winds up starting to decompose. So what people would do is they would process it and ferment it, and fermentation is a natural preservative. It's a natural preservative because it produces acidity as a byproduct, making it sterile, and the Saccharomyces is colonizing, or the yeast is colonizing that liquid and keeping like bad bacteria from being able to get in. So many miracles involved in fermentation. So when I get to work with farms, I get to talk to them about soil, and I get to talk to them about growing super flavorful agriculture. I'm not putting pressure on them to grow things that don't grow well here. So really the challenge is on me to figure out how to work with what does grow really well here. So I work really closely with a farm down the road called Traber Farms, and they have like a beautiful polyculture going on, like so many different types of produce. And so one of the things that really inspired me last year was their butternut squash. They had about 200 pounds, like a leftover, and they asked me if I would like it. But traditionally, if I'm gonna work with some agriculture, I want at least a ton, which is 2,000 pounds. 200 pounds, 2,000 pounds, like we're quite off the mark. So if I'm going to use 200 pounds, I'm gonna need to find other ingredients to put together with it. So at the time that Pete Treber called me up with his 200 pounds of butternut squash, I was experimenting with growing koji. And so koji is a Aspergillus oryzae. It's a mold that produces a ton of enzymes, and these enzymes are really good at breaking down starches into simple sugars. It's how you make miso, it's how you make shochu and sake. So it's a flavor powerhouse on top of being an amazing secret of fermentation from Asia. So I'm growing these 3 different strains of koji, and now I have 200 pounds of butternut squash, and I have some beautiful wheat left over from a whiskey mash, and they all just came together to create this spirit we call Sole Mio, which just feels like a really beautiful bottling of the harvest season. So I'm gonna teach you how to make a cocktail with this Sole Mio. So I've got a teaspoon. We'll pretend it's a tablespoon. I'm gonna eye it out. But did you know that 2 tablespoons equals an ounce? So no need to get a jigger. Just be like, spoon, to you. But again, this is a teaspoon, so like, a little more. That feels right. That feels right. You can just eye it out. Cocktails are not complicated. Don't let anyone tell you they are. It's just about balance. It's like cooking. So we're gonna throw in some lime juice. I'm thinking my goal here is about 1.5 ounces of spirit to about 0.75 ounces of lime juice. So I feel like that's about right. Oh my goodness. Okay, great start. Now I have some honey. I'm just gonna like throw a little honey in there. And I have a mason jar. I had a lid for this mason jar so that I could turn it into a shaker, but that's okay. No need. It's too far away. We've gone too far. I'm going to add some ice. I did not plan that. Okay. So now I have my makeshift shaker. I have my honey, my spirit, my lime juice. Oh, and over here, randomly, I have some elsewhere, no, nowhere. It's a triple sec that we make from organic New York corn and fresh oranges. I'm just gonna like throw a little in there. It's also got sugar in it. So I guess I'm making like a margarita, a butternut margarita. Does that sound really good? But with honey? It does. It sounds freaking fantastic. Okay. So another bartender hack. You really don't even need a shaker. A mason jar, a cup. I deserve this cocktail. Delicious. Okay, so at Matchbook, we are really an R&D facility. Like I said, we're constantly working with farms to figure out what is gonna grow well here, how we can work with it. And so Sole Mio, we'll never make it the same way twice. So our 2019 vintage was butternut squash and wheat and 3 different strains of koji. Our 2020 iteration of Sole Mio, our 2020 vintage, is going to be with Long Island cheese pumpkin, which Slow Food holds near and dear to their heart. They're these beautiful, like, white, squat, big pumpkins. They are uniquely well-suited for pumpkins, and if it's well-suited, no, for pumpkin pie, you know what I'm saying. If it's well-suited for pumpkin pie, it's well-suited for alcohol. Very excited to see how it goes, and maybe we'll do a cocktail seminar with it next year. All right, enjoy. Cheers.
So what did y'all think?
I think I want that cocktail right now, quite honestly.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, butternut squash. And when I was talking to her about this drink, she was telling me about the process and about Treber Farms, who is someone that we hold, very near and dear to our hearts. And then she mentioned to me about the Long Island cheese pumpkin. And then, of course, I was like, yes, because we love the Long Island cheese pumpkin. So I'm very, very excited to see what that Sole Mio is in the coming year. And I think it's interesting on how that on what they're calling Solo Mio, my son, is something that changes as the year changes, or just it's whatever's available and what inspires her to make that spirit, if you will.
I think
would the people watching this be able to buy a bottle of Solo Mio or their homemade triple sec?
That's a really good question. That would be a good question for Leslie. I'm assuming so. And I'm assuming it's probably a limited edition, but that would be something that we can tag her on Instagram.
Would it be at the place in Greenport, or is it on the shelf are they allowed to sell alcohol from there?
That's a question that we have to ask Leslie.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm sure, and she said that she apologizes that she can't be here to field questions, So she said, in the meantime, if people want to tag her on Instagram, she'd be more than happy to answer questions. And then, of course, the recipes and then this video will be posted on Slow Food East End, so that this way there's something to follow.
Hey, Laura, I just, because I was curious, I pulled up the Matchbook Distillery website, and it looks like you can order directly through their website any of their limited edition varieties. So,
Great.
and you can also create your own gin. So if anybody wants to do that.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
is Solo Mio, is it similar to a gin? I wasn't quite sure. Spirits wise.
Well, it's they use, I guess the process to which and how they make it is that they ferment the butternut squash, but I'm not quite sure.
I'm not sure. Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sure Louisa knows the answer to this too. It's a distilled spirit.
Correct.
So gin is distilled spirit with lots like juniper added to it, and vodka is a distilled spirit made from like potatoes or wheat or whatever. That usually has a pretty neutral flavor. So I would imagine it tastes pretty like butternuts, you know. So that's and rum comes from sugarcane. So it's like a gin, but it doesn't have the
It
gin.
doesn't have the juniper. Anyway, it sounds like a delicious addition to a Thanksgiving dinner. I don't know.
Definitely. It absolutely does.
Right?
I mean, it would be cool if we had it to taste while we did this Slow Food Live, you know, so that we all would be able to somehow have access to it and then be able to try it, right? So if we were gathering together and Leslie was in the room, we would all be able to try, you know, these fermented drinks and this Sole Mio. But I think we're all inventing how we're going to be doing these virtual gatherings, and this is our first one, and they're only going to get better. I mean, we're really very excited to be able to stay connected in this way. It's really very important. I mean, the hallmark of slow food is, you know, is gathering, and it's the idea that we come around the table and we talk about food, and we talk about the joy and justice around food. And to not be able to gather is really very heartbreaking. And so I think, you know, in times where we talk about social distancing, we need to be, although it's a physical distance, we need to be more social together in a virtual environment. And every month, I mean, although this month, because it is our September membership drive, so for all of you, if your membership you have to renew, please renew. And if you're not members, please consider joining. We have, like I said, for this month, this coming Wednesday is going to be Taylor Knapp, who will be live with us from Peconic Escargot, and that should be a really great slow food live session. And then the week after that is going to be 18 Bay Restaurant with Adam and Elizabeth, and we're going to be doing the Three Sisters. And that will be live as well too. They'll be doing a demo, so it'll be a little bit more interactive. But for this one, it's Leslie was really disappointed she couldn't be here to field those questions. So she would be more than happy to answer the questions on Instagram.
If we can get some of that cheese pumpkin spirit, we could like make a pumpkin pound cake and soak it in it like a rum cake, but like double pumpkin.
That sounds really good. That does sound really good.
That does.
Really, really good.
And it is pumpkin season.
It is, yeah. Penny, did you want to, we have about 20 minutes still. And then, you know, maybe you might want to talk a little bit about perhaps some of the things that we're doing on the East End, what we've been doing since this pandemic. It might be interesting to tell.
Sure, I would love to. First of all, again, a big thank you, and we really do miss you all. And we have been and just thinking, what can we do to connect with everybody? We can't be together. We know that. We don't know when. We're looking forward to that. But I think this FaceTime, just seeing your face, hearing your voice in some way, we wanted to have that connection back again. And yes, this is our membership drive, but for us, it's a kickoff of what can we do to be together again, to break bread virtually and virtually give each other hugs, because we really do miss that. So all these events will be culminating in our annual meeting. And for those of you who've gone, you know our annual meeting usually is at Quinnipiac. And it's our biggest event of the year, and there's tons of food and tons of fellowship and everyone coming together, and we're just going to have to do it online. So we've set up Wednesday, October 7th for our day, and it's a Wednesday night because I know a lot of people just are trying to get out and do what they can on the weekends when they can, and we're trying to make it different and special. We can't feed you all, but we want to gather together around food or around drink and talk about what we've done for this year. And we've done a lot. And to hit a little bit on it and not to talk too much about it, because that's not what tonight is about, we have really been using our resources to support the East End community. Oftentimes, a lot of what we do is support the school gardens. And unfortunately, school gardens missed a whole season last year. And right now, with how schools are and people going back to school, whether they're virtual, whether they're on site, and how they're getting the kids to be active, school gardens really aren't up and running that much this year. But we're there for them when they are. So instead, we turned that in how can we help the school gardens into how can we help our East End community in need. We donated to food pantries. We have given resilience grants to a lot of our food producers on the East End. A lot of them, particularly oyster farmers, really hit a wall fast because the oysters are ready to be harvested and they had nowhere to sell them to because restaurants were closed. So we supported some farmers, some oystermen, fishermen, small food producers to give them a little bit of a cushion to get them through the hard times. And something we also did, and Laura had alluded to it, our Snail of Approval awardees. Snail of Approval is a program where we honor restaurants, and we've gone on to farms for people who practice good, clean, and fair practice in their business. For restaurants, it's from the food they cook to where they source it, to how they serve it, to their employees, and hiring local and supporting local in any way they can, and the same thing for farms. So we gifted a lot of our Snail of Approval awardees who might have hit some tough times, or some gave their money to their employees or supported different funds. And along those lines, those Snail of Approval awardees, we are now going to purchase gift certificates from them, and we're going to have a huge raffle for anyone who becomes a member or renews their membership in the month, just as another way to support them. So there's a lot of things that we want to do that we've done, and more that we want to do, because this crisis has not ended, because we don't know what's going to happen when it becomes lag time and possibly becomes quieter out here. Are our restaurants going to suffer again? Are people going to lose jobs again? Are the food pantries are still just overboard with giving? We want to be able to support them now. And that's what our membership is partly all about, and the gratitude we have for our donors who have helped support those programs along the way. That's something that we just want to keep doing. So there's a lot going on. Along with that, though, we wanted to do something fun. You know, it's great, and we've been in our little bubble giving, but what can we do to bring us all together? And we're hoping somehow that these virtual platforms in some way will get us together, that we could reconnect, that we can see your faces, that we could all share a drink. I personally won't be sharing the snail because most of you who know me know I don't eat anything that had a mother, and I'm pretty sure snails did. But we'll be together and just talking about things that we love, which is the East End, which is food, which is the drink, which is the terroir, which is everything that this great community, along with the people who live here and make it great, do. So I'm really glad you joined us. And if anybody has any questions for me about the state of slow food, I'm more than happy to answer.
Anybody have anything to add? That was great, Penny. Thank you.
Thank you. And that was off the cuff because I didn't have anything planned, so thanks.
Perfect. Well, because it is September, because I'm co-chair with Ann Howard for the membership drive, I'm going to put a link into the chat on how you can become a member, how you can renew your membership. So I'm going to do that now. This way you have it at your fingertips.
And I just want to say something about why membership is important. We in Slow Food are trying to make a stand in this community for equity, equality, inclusion, and justice. And we want to bring that to the forefront of who we are as a chapter. And when we can go to a group or an organization and try to lend our support for that and say that we have a strong membership, that really means something. That really means something to different groups when we say Slow Food supports the work that you do, or Slow Food would like to see a change in how things are done in the community. When we can go and say we have a membership of 400 people, families on the East End, that really means something. So that's one of the reasons why we're pushing membership, not just to see the number, but to know that with that number comes authority and power in a community where and when we want to make the change.
Thanks, Penny.
That's an excellent point, Penny.
Thanks. Yeah, it's about making the change, and the more people we have but behind us, the more numbers that are there, I think we'll have more power to make things happen. So thank you for becoming a member.
And also, you know, the climate of you know, the East End community is our community, right? It's from Riverhead, maybe Moriches, but Riverhead. We've kind of gone into Moriches a little.
Kind of have.
All the way to Montauk and all the way up in Orient. You know, but we have a solid mission. You know, it's a common mission all around the world. And then there's a mission that's local to our chapter. And the good work that we do is always, it's always ebbing and flowing. It's never the same every year. It changes based on the need in what's happening within the community. So the strength of this chapter, you know, is the idea that we're able to react and to be able to give back to the community based on what the climate is. Just like with this pandemic, I mean, that really knocked everyone in the world off their heels. And just to come off your coattails, Penny, and what you're saying, you know, we really shifted our gears. We really pivoted and really took a close look at how many people were so affected in our food community by this pandemic. I mean, it's catastrophic. And I feel really proud to be part of an organization that was able to give back, not just monetarily, but also as friends in this community, that we're able to all support each other. And also the fact that we've come together with other organizations like the East End Food Institute, CAST. I mean, you know, we're all in Project Drawdown, and if I'm missing somebody, please speak up, I apologize. But I mean, Ecological Culture Initiative. I mean, to be able to all come together and not be, you know, because we're all doing similar things, but the fact that we can all come together in a community for a similar cause, it really shows strength in numbers. So I'm very, very proud of this community, and I'm just honored to be, part of slow food in general.
I agree. And thank you all for being a part of this and being a part of the community that we all love so much, and looking forward to way more exciting things happening, as well as being together.
Yeah.
If you go to our website, slowfoodeastend.com, then click in the news tab, you can read stories about the people that we were able to help and how they used the money to either buy wine labels or help them buy recycle, like packaging that could be recycled for the oysters so they could buy seed, and for restaurants who were able to pay dishwashers and bussers and people, so that because the restaurants weren't open and they weren't making any money. So the grants that we did some really good work to help out people, not just producers, but also workers.
Yep. Thanks for bringing that up, Eileen.
I think it's worth saying something about slow food and how it got started, because the first time I knew about slow food was I went to Verona to a wine conference in 1997, and the original slow food people had a booth there, and they were doing a tasting of balsamic vinegar. But what I learned was that slow food started out when there was a McDonald's that was opened up on the Spanish Steps. Right. And there was a journalist who just was outraged, and he's like, this has nothing to do with our culture and the way we want to live. So protecting the traditional foodways is what slow food is about right now. But at its core, slow food is especially about slowing down and respecting and honoring things that do take a little bit longer to make. And that includes relationships. And for us to be spending some of this time when we're not, quite as able to rush around as maybe we were before, although I kind of see here on the North Fork, people are rushing around anyway, speaking for myself. But I mean, the idea of slow food and slowing down was thinking about, the teas and the meditation. There are opportunities for that also, that that slow food had its origins in as a concept. Slowing down, enjoying life. Let's do that also. When you get an heirloom piece of fruit or something that, you go to Wickham's and you buy a white peach, and you buy them, you have to eat them that day, and maybe they don't even look fully ripe, but if you wait a day, they're gone. But you can't buy that peach in the supermarket because it's too delicate. So to respect it and honor it, and take it slowly, it's really a good thing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
And we can also talk about the inception of Slow Food East End. Louisa, I think you were one of the founding members, and so was Mary Morgan with her husband Tom, and Ursula Massoud. And the person who really got it going was Ted Conklin of the American Hotel.
Yeah, well, that was a good thing.
That was 2003, right?
Yeah, because we did our events at the American Hotel, and well, I went to Italy later on to the Verona Fair with Ted, and I mean that was an incredible thing where you go around this hall and you see sausages and mushrooms and jams and jellies and stuff made out of things you've never heard of, but these are all foods that people are trying to protect, and ways of culturing things. Even our wine industry here, where I hate the word industry because so much wine made today is made in bulk, and it's based on marketing, and this is the wine that people want to drink, so let's try to make exactly the same wine year in and year out. Whereas here, so many of the wineries, it's all artisanal, and it's a matter of paying attention. The fruit comes in from the vineyard. Well, what are we going to make this year? We're not necessarily going to make the same wines, because maybe we'll make a pet nat, or maybe we'll make a vermouth this year. Maybe we'll make something different, but it's going to depend on I mean, it does depend on marketing. People do want to get the same thing they've gotten before. So you don't want to give up something that people have liked, but it's never going to be exactly the same. So that's kind of a strike against us in a way in the marketplace, but at the same time needs to be honored and respected that the winemakers, they get the fruit, they taste it, they smell it, they start to ferment it. Maybe in the middle of the fermentation, they'd be like, well, this isn't going to make a giant, big wine, you know? And maybe they stop the fermentation and make something lighter that they're going to sell a little faster. So it's a matter of respecting the basic things that you've started out with. Yeah, beginning slow food was pretty great. And I was running the Center for Wine, Food, and Culture at Stony Brook, and I went to Italy to talk to the slow food people because they have an Institute of Gastronomy. And we had an agreement, which the whole thing ended when the Stony Brook Center ended, which had to do with funding, like everything else. But we were going to partner with the Institute of Gastronomy and have an exchange, because they were all about, you know, how to raise pigs and make prosciutto and cheese. And they wanted to learn about marketing, and New York is the marketing center of the world. So we were going to have an exchange and do some interesting things with all that. But, you know, there's still, life goes on. You can still do interesting things like that. But slow food is a vehicle for much more than, you know, just finding an unusual kind of plum. And certainly, you know, the fundraising that we're doing, connecting with people who are trying to make an effort and really in this economy have caught up short. That is really, really crucial right now. Feeding people who don't have food is the most important thing. Mm-hmm. But keeping in mind the slow, I guess that's what I started blabbing about. The slow aspect of it is so much a part of it also, and just enjoying what we do have, slowing down.
And I remember some people from the gastronomy center in Italy came over and they made a tour, and we went to a dinner at the restaurant where the 18 Bay couple owned before, that was up island on the North Shore. Anyone remember the name of the town? And what's that?
I think it was in Bayville.
Yes, it was in Bayville. And so we got to have a dinner out of them with some grass-fed beef and lots of really local stuff. That was
Yeah, if I can just chime in, it's Mary.
2008.
The early days of slow food was really amazing that Ted used his restaurant to gather, frankly, all of his friends and everybody else and say, this is something worth, you know, getting involved in. And just, you know, Brian Hallwell, I don't know if he's still on the call, but he was just starting to launch Edible East End. We wanted him to be one of the leaders of slow food. He said, no, I'm too busy launching this magazine. But we all got behind that. And it really, it's a wonderful thing. What, 20 years or 17 years, whatever it's been, this incredible following of people who want local, fresh, delicious food, and all the makers and producers. It's just wonderful. I really applaud everyone who's involved.
Well, I feel when I took over the chapter, I felt really, really fortunate that I walked in when all the hard work in a way behind me was done because of the great leadership that came before me. And I've always been grateful for all the work everyone's done that helped the chapter go from nothing, like you said, in 2003 to as much as we've accomplished now. So for me, that's a big thank you to everyone who's helped get us where we are and still do. The support is still there. We know it and we feel it. So thank you.
And I know Ann Howard is on this call. She's another one that was a chair. I don't know if she wants to speak up, but there we go.
Tell you the truth, I was cooking dinner and listening, and now my battery
ran out.
That's funny.
I figured I'd finish her sentence for her. Her battery ran out.
Well, that's slow, all right.
Oh, it is. Oh gosh. Poor Anne. I would have loved to hear. We're in touch with Anne all the time, but she's been quite amazing, and her dedication to slow food now is really very helpful. That's when you get all the letters, all those letters about membership. That comes from Anne, from Ann Howard. So I guess, well, that's a wrap for our first ever Slow Food Live East End. I want to thank you all for being here for the launch. It's only going to get better, and I'm just so delighted. The best part really is seeing all of you and hearing your stories about slow food. I really do appreciate your participation and sharing your experience and your knowledge, and your support is just incredible. So thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, and we'll see you next week.
We will.
Slow and snails.
No, yeah, Slow and Snail.
Slow and snails.
Cargo and Taylor Knapp, the snail wrangler, as he calls